All right, well, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 1 of season 2 of our build channel, I guess you would call it. I don't know what we call my channel right now, but this is the first episode of season 2. We will be rebuilding a 1936 Ford, which is right behind me here. Last season, we worked on an 88 Montero Dodge Raider, and that was a great project. I still drive it. I enjoy it, and it was a fun build series. So we're going to move on to something a little bit different. This is a 1936 Ford. It's a hot rod now. It's been chopped. It's got a clip under it, Mustang 2 front end, which has power steering, power brakes, independent suspension, so it drives more like a car. Let me give a little bit of a background on this car here. My dad bought this around 2007 or 8, somewhere in there, from a friend of a friend, a hot rodding buddy of his. An older guy who was working on this car and had a kind of some health issues pop up, and he wanted to sell off some of his projects to pay for some of the medical things he was going through, and also just kind of moving on to a different phase of his life where he wasn't going to be spending a lot of time out in the garage. So Dad bought this as a basket case, project that was in pieces that was half done. You can find those all over Facebook and Craigslist. There's a ton of them that folks get halfway into a project and either run out of patience or run out of money or get bored with it. And so this project here is going to kind of take the steps that many of you would go through if you bought something off of Craigslist that was in pieces or half done. So he bought this car in 2007, pretty much in the condition it's in. And they had just completed a chop on the top, but it was just a shell, and they had already clipped the front of the frame. They put the Mustang 2 parts on it, and they had the body sitting on the frame. And so he gave the car to another hot rod buddy of ours to put together just good enough to drive as a rat rod. And so our buddy, a car guy here in town, built a car for us in about, 2010 or so, 10 or 11. And Dad drove this 36 Ford for a number of years as a rat rod with no interior, primer black. And it was fun to drive. It looked cool, had no windows in it except for the windshield. And, was content to leave it at that for the time being until he could decide to go for a full-on rebuild with, nice interior, nice paint, all that kind of stuff. And so, we fast forward to about 2015, 16, somewhere in there, when he lent me the car for a week. He was out of town. I borrowed the car. He parked it here in my garage and left the keys. And so I started driving it and I started noticing all kinds of things that needed to be fixed. The drive line, the U-bolts, U-joints were bad. They didn't even fit. They were real loose. They were clunky loose. And the floorboards were all tied together with just sheet metal screws. Nothing was welded. And so I started picking through the car and decided, well, we need to fix a couple of things just to make it a little bit easier to drive. He had 80s Fiero or early 90s Fiero seats in it, which were very uncomfortable. So there was 3 or 4 things that I wanted to fix on it. Pretty much that week he was gone. I was going to have it back together by the end of the week. And as I tore it apart, as I was taking out the floorboards and I was taking out the drive shaft, I was looking for a set of seats online. It just kept going. I kept taking the car apart until we ended up with a frame and a body. And we decided that we were just going to go ahead and do the full-on rebuild in about 2016 or so. And then, other things popped up. We had a few other cars drop into our lap that we started working on. We had a couple of house remodels we were working on. And this whole project got set aside. So for the purposes of this video, we're just going to pretend none of that other stuff happened, and we just bought this in this condition, which is essentially what we did years ago. And so we're going to just go through the steps of what it is like to rebuild a car that's kind of half done. And we are going to put our own kind of style into it. We got a couple of ideas. We're going to make a few changes on what they were working on. But as far as what we did this week we started prepping the frame for paint. Dad spent some time with the wire wheel brush and hand brushes and started scraping off all the dirt and rust. And then I proceeded to keep working on these couple of rusty parts on the floorboards. Pretty nice having that on rollers.
Yeah. Good.
Go your way.
My way. Get out of that rut. Okay, try it again.
Let's come around a bit. Alright, so what we're working on here is replacing some rusted out parts on the side of this car here. Got this Sill Plate, which I ordered from a guy in Ohio a few years ago, that replicates this sill that runs up into the frame, the front of the cowl and the front of the firewall. And then I got a couple of patch panels that I'm going to cut parts off of and use for this trim that goes underneath the front fender. I've already worked on the other side and moved over to this side to cut out some of this rust through. It's like Swiss cheese on parts of this car. So I'm just taking measurements. We put a frame or a brace, cross brace in here to keep the front cowl from moving around. So when I cut this completely out, that front cowl should stay where it's supposed to be. This piece out right here, we're going to replace it with this one. I'm going to chop it down just a little bit, get an exact measurement on it. We'll weld it here, and we'll weld it up here, and then I'll fill it in with 4 pans that I have over there by that table. One small step at a time. So this car has currently a 400 small block automatic transmission. It's a Chevy motor and tranny right now, which we will most likely be converting to a 302 Ford, just because this is a Ford, and you know I'm not a huge fan of having a Chevy powered Ford. With motors over here, I'm gonna bust out this 302, and we're gonna go through that and most likely install that in this car. We've done some work with the dashes. We got a set of classic industry instruments for this, and took out the originals. The originals weren't working, and it was going to be fairly expensive to get them rebuilt. So we went with a set of these. We have a tilt wheel that we've already bought and installed. See, I did it. Steering wheel company. And another project is going to be these rear windows. Because this is chopped about 3 inches, the rear windows won't fit back in the car. What I have to do is cut out some of this bracing right here and angle them up into the cavity between the panels there. So that will be a project we will tackle soon. I'm working on this roof. We took off the vinyl roof that they had put on because I didn't like the way that they installed the seam around it. And furthermore, we're going to paint it. I had to take the seam off anyway, and it was riveted in such a way that I just wasn't happy with it. So we took it all off, and we're going to redo the vinyl insert for the roof. All right, well there you have it for episode 1 of our new build series. Check back with episode 2, and by then we will have these floor pans in. We'll have that sill welded in, and hopefully we'll have this frame painted. I'm going to do a little bit of repair work to the frame. We're going to paint it. We'll put that body on that frame. That will be within the next week or 2. So check back, and we'll keep plugging away at it.